Hey everybody, welcome to week two, and really the first week of real material. Last week you guys looked at the setup of the course and some materials to help you understand how the course works. And you did your diagnostic essay assignment. This week we get into the first portion of the real material in the course. And so I've made a PowerPoint for you here that hopefully you guys can see here on my screen. And I'm also going to post this to Moodle for y'all to be able to follow along with. So this week, we're beginning a unit that kind of spins off of the diagnostic essay that you submitted last week. Some of you may have felt a little bit frustrated when you got that diagnostic essay assignment because I didn't give you a ton of guidance. And that's on purpose. I want that essay to be a rough essay. I don't want it to be perfect. And part of the reason is that it gives me a sense of what you're like when you're writing before you've polished your drafts. But it also gives us a chance to do a practice unit where we look a little bit at how to take a piece of writing and make it better. Because over the course of the semester, that's really what you're going to be doing. Your initial draft of the essay matters, but what matters the most is your ability to get from that initial draft to a revised and perfected version, a final draft. And note that when I say perfected, I don't mean that it actually has to be perfect, right? Nobody's writing is perfect, but an improved version or an improved draft. So I want you guys to learn up front the skill of looking at a piece of writing and determining what's good about it and what could be better. And one of the best ways to teach you that is to have you do it on your own work. And so I had you write a relatively simple essay last week so that this week we can begin looking at it and talking about how to revise it and what to do with it. So this is Unit 1, Writing and Revising. And down here you'll see that I have the activities that we're going to do this week, and you have two of them, two shorter activities rather than a longer essay length activity. The first one is a participation activity, meaning you're going to get the points as long as it looks like you tried. And this is an activity called Analyzing a Writer's Technique, and it comes straight from your textbook. The second activity is a graded assignment where I assign points based on the quality of the work, and that is a revising a paragraph and explaining your revision. So contrary to what it might look like on the calendar, the way that I designated things, you're not actually revising the entire essay this week. You're just working on the thesis and a paragraph. So let's move on. First, I want to talk a little bit about something that I introduced last week. I posted a video for you guys of another instructor who was reviewing the components of an essay. There are a lot of different videos online that review the components of a 5-paragraph essay. And even though not every essay that you write in school will be 5 paragraphs long, that title is still a metaphor for what a paragraph is, or not a paragraph, for what an essay is supposed to look like. And you saw one video in which an instructor went over how to structure an essay. There's also a lot of great information in your textbook about how to structure an essay. And you probably know the basics of it, right? That you have an introductory paragraph, and your introductory paragraph is the one that says, here's what I'm planning to do. And it's a place where you establish your own authority as a writer. It's a place where you try to hook in the reader and get them interested in what you're talking about. And it's also a place where you might provide some background that they need to know in order to understand the context of the piece of writing that you're about to present. So for example, if I'm writing an essay about healthcare and the argument for universal healthcare in the United States, then I could include some information about recent political debates over what the Republican-controlled Congress is going to do about healthcare. So there's a contemporary issue that makes that important. Or if I were writing an essay about occurrences of police brutality, I could introduce some background to talk about how that's an urgent and immediate issue because there are occurrences populating our country right now. So background that the reader needs to know in order to understand why the topic's important or why it's relevant. And then the body is where you're going to talk about the meat of your argument. So whatever you said you were going to do in the introduction, in the body of the essay, you do it. This is where you set up your individual paragraphs that have what's called subtopics. So subtopics are also sometimes called key points. It's the things that you're using to support the argument that you've introduced at the beginning of the essay. So you told the reader you were going to do something, and in the body you say, I'm doing it, right? This is where I'm presenting my argument. So your body paragraphs need to include topic sentences that let me know what the paragraph is about. We're going to go into that in more detail in a second. And then some evidence, and we're going to talk about that in more detail in a second as well. And then, of course, your concluding paragraph, which is the one where you tie everything together. You remind the reader why the issue is important. You might mention your key points again to give the reader something to hold on to. And then you give them something memorable, something to take away as they're walking away from that essay. And sometimes I tell students, think about it like an argument in a courtroom. So if you're like me and you watch bad legal dramas on television, the lawyers always have closing statements. And in those closing statements, they have to summarize days or hours worth of presented facts and evidence in a very short 5-minute summary of the information. So it's where you're giving your closing argument, right? You're saying, hey reader, even if you've forgotten some of what I wrote, I'm going to remind you about the things that were important. So those are the components of an essay, and you can review those on pages 124 to 140 of your textbook if you feel that you need some review on that. And the reason that I suggest reviewing is because, I'm going to come back to this paragraph in a second. In this course, you're going to be expected to understand and do more than just the basics of a structured essay. If anything, the diagnostic should have taught you that you already know how to write a 5-paragraph essay. If you're in a college English course, you should already know the basics of introduction, body, conclusion. You should have been doing that in high school. So that's something you should already know how to do. Consequently, if you're not sure that you know how to do that, it's a good idea to review these pages. Take a look back at pages 120 to 140 in that text, or take a look at some videos like the one that I posted that reviews the components of an essay, because I'm going to expect more from you. What we're trying to do in this class is get you to the point where you're moving beyond just that 5-paragraph structure, and you're doing things like making sure the essay is cohesive. So don't make it chunky. Make everything flow together. Make one idea follow from the idea before it. So instead of having your body paragraphs read like just a list of concepts, figure out how to organize your paragraphs and put them in order in the essay such that they develop one point into the next point. We're going to talk about how to do that. We're going to talk about how you need to move beyond just basic supporting evidence and think about how to make sure your evidence is reliable and that it's logical and it makes sense, and also that it stands up to criticism. So can somebody poke holes in your evidence? So one of the things I'm going to do over the course of the semester, and you may not like it, is I'm going to poke holes in your evidence. And I'm going to say, are you sure about this? Is this true? Where'd you get this information? Is this the way everybody would feel about this? I'm going to do what's called playing devil's advocate, right? I'm going to say, what about this? What about this? What about this? And I'm doing that not to insult you. I'm doing it to make you a better writer, to get you to think about things from somebody else's perspective and see where there might be some holes in your logic. If you guys are going into a field that has research in it, like social work or psychology or medicine or even engineering, any of the basic sciences have research involved. At some point, you're going to make a claim and have to back it up. Even at work, sometimes you make a claim and have to back it up. Say that you are a nurse and you're taking care of a patient and you took a certain action in caring for that patient. You need to be able to back up why you took that action. Why did you do this particular thing? I chose to hold this patient's medication because of X, Y, and Z. Or you're a police officer and you arrest somebody. You need to be able to justify why you arrested them. What happened? What were the details of that situation that led you to make that decision? So providing reliable evidence and logical details is something you're going to have to do throughout your life. You're interviewing for a job and the person says, what makes you a good salesman? You're going to have to prove it. And so by poking holes in your argument, I'm going to try to show you how to prove your point better. You're also going to learn how to think consciously about language and word choice. So I want you to move beyond just communicating in basic sentences. I want you to start to think about how your choice of words changes the meaning of your writing. And this is something I'm going to do a whole unit on. So we're going to work on this as a whole separate unit. So if you hear that and you think, oh, I don't know what she means by that, I'm going to show you. Don't worry. And you're also going to understand how to build your skills using feedback from others and partaking in some self-reflection. So you're going to get feedback from me, you might get feedback from other readers or your classmates, and I'm also going to ask you to reflect on your own writing and think about whether you did a good job. Is my writing good? How can I improve it? Because the key answer is everyone can improve their writing. I can still improve my writing. Stephen King can still improve his writing. People who write for the newspaper can still improve their writing. Everybody, no matter how experienced you are, can become a better writer. And we're also going to play around with thinking about audience, purpose, and genre. So who are you writing for? How are you going to change the way that you present your ideas based on the person that you're trying to convince? So would you talk the same way to a peer that you would to your teacher? Would you talk the same way to a general audience as you would to somebody with specific educational goals? So like, would you talk the same way to a doctor as you would to a patient? Also your purpose. So think about what you're trying to get accomplished. Every essay should have a goal, should have something you're trying to achieve. So did your writing function to accomplish that purpose? And then genre is something we'll talk about a little later. It means the style of essay that you're writing. So if you're in English 110, are you writing a narrative essay? Are you writing a comparison essay? You're writing a definition essay? If you're in 111, are you doing a rhetorical analysis? Are you writing a persuasive essay where you're trying to convince somebody of something? Are you writing an instructional essay where you explain something to someone? What's your genre? And then we're also going to work on proper format because you guys need to learn academic format. So I'm going to hold you to that after I teach you how to do it. And of course, proper spelling and grammar. So we're going to practice on that as well. And that's going to end part 1 of the video. So after you've viewed this, please view part 2 for the rest of the slideshow.